Shanti, Mr. Jayanti. Welcome to everyone. So firstly, I want to say that we had some Christmas shows here over the weekend, and we had 3 shows each day, walking people through the house. And this was the first time we were welcoming new people again, Lokiks. And it was amazing. And they've given a lot of good feedback, a lot of good energy. And of course, everyone from the family was involved. And so that's a really good piece of news. And we will be having more BK retreats. That notice is coming to you, starting from January. And Jayanti, today's Murli that we're focusing on is talking about revelation and making a promise. And so I was reminded of Jagdish Bhai's example, where Baba had given the homework of writing this letter, and everybody made excuses because the electricity went and there was no light to sit under and write. And so Jagdish Bhai took himself outside under the street light, and he wrote this letter, and he took it seriously. And he said in one of his classes that he took this seriously because he was afraid that if he did not obey Baba, then that might become a habit of not obeying, of disobedience. And of course, when Baba asked the next morning, who has written the letter? And he also didn't want to brag that I've written the letter. And so others said they saw him writing something. And then Baba saw the letter, and Baba gave him so much love and so many blessings. And so this is what it takes really to, become somebody who's ahead or a senior or somebody who's making that deep level of effort. So thank you, Jayanti. We look forward to hearing from you. Shanti.
Om Shanti. Yes, it was beautiful to be in Oxford on Friday when BK students and their families and friends came, and it was such a warm atmosphere of just love and joy. And the question was, where is the Christmas spirit? Is it in the singing and the dancing and the eating or the chatting? Where is it? Is it in the walls? But of course, the Christmas spirit is inside of you. So it was a lovely message that everybody carried away from that little experience. And London has had snow, and early in the season, somebody was commenting, the snow should have waited till the 24th of December. It's come already, but drama is as it is. So it's been nice for the people who are here for the first time in London to experience snow. They've been enjoying it a lot. And Baba's Murli is of the 18th of January, 93. And every 18th of January Murlis are very special, very powerful, in a way as each one. But these carry a very special quality about them. And so Baba was celebrating the meeting with his powerful children. The all-powerful one, the Almighty, was meeting us. And Baba was seeing that the key to all powers is simply awareness. And from the moment of our spiritual birth as Brahmins, we have access to all these treasures of all the powers. And it's simply the key of awareness that unlocks it. And in a second, we can receive our birthright of all these powers from God. As soon as I say, my Baba, and Baba responds and says, my child, that's it. The birthright is fixed, and I'm able to access all these powers just simply with the right awareness, the right consciousness. And then Baba spoke about the fact that, yes, from the moment of birth, everyone has all powers. But the 18th of January is a very special occasion filled with special awareness and remembrance, but also filled with the gift of receiving all powers. And Baba recollected how right at the very beginning, Baba had surrendered everything to the Shaktis. And so the surrender of all his relationships, the surrender of all his powers, handing all of that over to the Shaktis, and that chapter of service had begun. And then at the end of Baba's corporeal life, Father Brahma decided, it was very interesting, Father Brahma made the decision to become Avyakt. Of course, Shiv Baba was calling, but it was also Brahma Baba's decision to become Avyakt. Now I've done all that I can here in this corporeal world. And now the Shaktis are the ones to whom I'm going to surrender everything and all the willpower and all the powers to them, so that they can be the ones who reveal the Father in front of the whole world. And so the revelation has to happen. And how come it's not yet happened? And then Baba spoke about the blessings that we have. And it's threefold blessings. It's blessings from Shiv Baba and blessings from the bestower of fortune, Brahma Baba. Now that was a very interesting title that Baba mentioned, because in the scriptures it's written that Brahma was the one who was able to hand fortune to each one of his children. And sometimes when somebody feels that they haven't received sufficiently, then the comment is made, perhaps you were sleeping when Father Brahma was handing out fortune. Where were you at that time? And so Father Brahma is sharing all his blessings. The bestower of fortune is giving you blessings. And thirdly, blessings from the sweet versions of Jagadamba Saraswati. And again, it was interesting that Baba specified the way in which Mama gave blessings. So she didn't put her hand on anybody's head or anything external, but just her sweet versions, the way in which she spoke, the dharana with which she spoke, the detachment and love with which she gave advice to each one of those who were her equals or even her elders. But she was at that moment the embodiment of wisdom, and so sharing through her sweet versions God's blessings with all. And so Baba said, well, this is something that all of you have in mind, that you want to be able to achieve revelation. And yes, there are many methods that are opening up. And I thought about how so much technology has allowed us to reach across oceans and share message with many multi thousands or even millions, perhaps altogether. If we put the number of the Brahmin family who have been sharing on Zoom through these past few years, Baba's message in some form or another must have definitely reached millions, multi-millions. And so Baba's saying that there'll be easier and easier methods with which to be able to achieve success. And so all of you are doing all of this. But yet, what is the difference? There seems to be a difference between the thought of revelation and your promise. And it's not enough just to have a promise, but you have to have a very firm pledge, a very firm, determined pledge that, yes, this is what has to be done. And Baba mentioned something very interesting, that this balance between revelation and promise, as you bring about that balance, which means that equality, yes, revelation, but you with your powerful pledge, make it happen. So that will bring blessings to all souls. So little things like that in this Murli, a sentence, and it sort of opens up a secret and helps us understand what we need to do more. And then Baba also talking about how, yes, you make a blessing, you make a promise with your heart, and it's really true that this is what you really want to do. But then something happens along the way. And so that promise gets forgotten. But yet, just remember, your promise is to become victorious. Your promise is to become a garland around God's neck. Your promise is to become a bead of the rosary of victory. And so all of these things put together, then finally, later Baba said that the real promise is that I am going to become Bap Saman. I am going to become like my father, equal to my father. And so, are you ready to make a pledge to the extent that even if you die, you will fulfill that pledge? You will not shake from that promise. You will not let go of the promise you have made, no matter what the circumstances may be, no matter what the challenges may be, no matter what other people may do. Are you ready to actually make that commitment? So the first thing that Baba said, in order to make the promise and revelation become equal and for you to actually become like the Father, the first is to give up all excuses. And in the excuses, Baba told us the things that we say. Well, because of this is what I did. It was like this, and so this is what I had to do. Or this one was like this one said this, and so this is why I did this. And Baba said, but you're ready to die to fulfill your promise, are you not? So all of these things are minor, very little things. So how come you're making all these excuses? And if you're making excuses, then it's like you're waiting for something and you don't know when that's going to happen. You say, well, if they give me cooperation, then I will do this. Or if they are good, or if this becomes good, then I'll be able to be perfect. But you can't do that. It has to be you taking responsibility for yourself. And no matter what it is that's going on, you're not going to be distracted by it. And anyway, you have the title of being the master bestowers. And a lovely definition, the meaning of Brahman life is to give, and it is in the giving that you receive. Very, very beautiful definition of what a Brahman life is. And so Baba said, from your side, you have to give love, you have to give cooperation, and you have to maintain your own dignity and self-respect. And the highest self-respect is this: I am the master bestower. So it becomes a life in which I'm giving. And then the second excuse that we make. So the first was generally giving excuses. And the second factor that prevents us from fulfilling our promise or our pledge, that we become careless. And it's like a big machine. And this big, amazing machine is able to do so much. But if there's one tiny little screw missing, then in that state, the machine can't function. So you've made this big commitment, this big promise, I will become like the Father. But then carelessness comes in. And then you say, well, so-and-so is doing it. Well, these things happen anyway. And so it's okay if I do this or I do that. And so that attitude of carelessness prevents you from reaching that goal that you have set for yourself. And so the machine can't function. You're not able to achieve that. And then the third thing, so 3 factors that prevent us from becoming Bap Saman. And the third factor that Baba mentioned was, Baba said that Baba's told you before, and you can take it as an entertaining factor, but whatever it is, the reality is that instead of being able to see yourself, you're looking at others. And so your long sight, your far distant sight is much, much better than your short sight. Short sight to see the self, and long sight to see others far away. And so am I able to see myself and be able to understand and check and change and do what I need to do? Or am I saying, well, so-and-so isn't doing it. Well, the seniors are like this, so it doesn't matter if I'm like that also. So long sight, just look at others, but also in particular, to look at their defects or their weaknesses. So I'm deceiving myself. I'm saying that, well, I'm not doing this because they aren't. But my effort is my responsibility. I am not supposed to change anyone else. I can't do that. But my responsibility is to change myself. And so 3 very interesting aspects of the way in which we avoid the responsibility of doing what it is we need to do. And then, of course, Baba acknowledging all those who are not in Madhuban, who are sitting far away in physical terms, but their thoughts and minds and hearts are with Madhuban, especially on the day of the 18th. And so Baba saying that Baba's wireless connection is amazing, because the sound of each one's heart reaches Baba, but also at the same time, Baba sees the faces of the children, and seeing the pearls in their eyes, the tears of love, Baba also garlands them with pearls and gives them all his love. So very beautiful passage of, on the one side, Baba explaining how come we are not becoming perfect and why the bugles of revelation aren't happening. But on the other side, Baba just giving that pure love to all, whether physically present or far away. And then Baba spoke to the Dadis. And usually on the 18th, this time Baba remembered Mama, but usually Baba remembers the advance party, especially on the 18th. And so then Baba saying, the souls who are there in front of Baba at that time, the Dadis, that the power that Baba has granted all of you, especially in return for the fruit of your courage from the early days at the beginning. You have the power of your own effort, but you also have the willpower that Baba has given you first in the early days for your courage, and also in the final days at the last moment. So you have both powers. And then Baba saying, some have a question as to how it is the 2 who were chosen to be the main instruments were given that role. And Baba's very beautiful explanation that the courage that these 2 had at the beginning is what has then given them that role. And Baba was addressing the fact that Didi Manmoini and Dadi Prakashmani, out of the whole gathering of even the Dadis, was selected. Why? Because Didi Manmoini was the first mother who surrendered, and Dadi Prakashmani was the first Kumari who surrendered. And so Baba was saying that the courage that they had at that early time, when things were very challenging, the return of that, the visible fruit of that, is the power that Baba has given them. And at that time of the final departure from the corporeal world, again, it was these 2 souls who received the return for that courage. Now, I don't remember Baba having positioned it in that way. I've read this Murli before, I've studied it before, I'm sure, but it was now that suddenly it was like a bit of the jigsaw puzzle fitting into place as to how that drama was created and how that fruit is coming back multi-million fold. And the beautiful aspect of drama that you get the return of whatever it is you've done in Sangam Yuga. It's very beautiful. I've done this much for Baba, but the return that Baba gives me is really, really multi-million fold. And so very much Baba talking to the Dadis and saying, you're also the ones who have not just had love, but fulfilled the responsibility of love. And then Baba also addressing the gathering, that all of you are also the ones who have fulfilled the responsibility of love and have fulfilled the promise that you're making, are you not? And so Baba including everybody in a beautiful way. And then of course, Baba also speaking to groups, and the main message of the group is again about being the master almighty authority and having ruling power and controlling power over the self. And how if you're the master, then in that stage of mastery, if you order one of the powers will be present, they will be available. But if you're weak and you're not in that consciousness of being the Master Almighty, then the powers can't obey you. They're not going to listen to you. And there's no point in you needing a power at a particular time, and that power isn't available for you. That power comes later on. So it's a little bit late. The moment for having applied a brake has gone. And so it doesn't work. But Baba also mentioning to the gathering that it's a time when all of you are experiencing such joy of the celebration of the meeting and experiencing that pleasure. And the world is going through a hard time. And so at that time, whatever the conditions were, people must have been facing challenges. And of course, now even more so, even though we're approaching the holiday season and festivities, but yet still the problems that people are facing are huge and all around everywhere. And so I was saying that for you, there's pleasure. And for the world, it's uncertainty and fear and questions. What will the future hold? And for you, no questions, a full stop. And so in that stage of full stop, yes, I can celebrate a meeting with Baba and enjoy that experience of being with God. And another very lovely sentence that had come earlier, I was speaking to the whole gathering, 3 steps. First is the step to understand myself. And the second is the motivation, the pure desire to bring about change. And then the third step is to actually do it. Normally, we would say that, well, you're talking about it, well, do it. But Baba put it quite differently this time. You understand what are the changes you need to make. But then, of course, we don't always, even after understanding, we don't have that passion, we don't have that motivation to actually do it. And so it also needs that pure desire on my part that I want to make this change happen. And then the third is to be able to take the power from Baba to do it actually. And so this is the time to understand, have that pure desire, and then actually make it happen. And Baba's been using this expression, check and change, several times in the last Murlis that we've been hearing. So a Murli about becoming the Brahmin whose purpose of life is to give. For me, that statement that Baba made about what is the meaning of Brahmin life, it really, really shifts things in an incredible way. And it really puts things into a different perspective. And so have I understood the meaning of Brahmin life. So very beautiful, very powerful Murli from 1993. And here we are so many years later, and am I doing what Baba wants me to do? Is my heart agreeing with what Baba is saying? And then I'm going to have the incentive to do it. So over to you, Sister Aruna.
Thank you, Jayanti. Such a beautiful synopsis of the Murli. And yes, so many points. I was thinking if we only take this one Murli for our life and practice that, maybe we'll become karmatik. So why don't we begin with this first question? And I've had a few people ask me this, because it's quite unusual that Baba says a balance between revelation and a promise, because normally we think that one is as a result of the other. If we make a promise, then Baba will be revealed. So it's not just the rhyming in Hindi, is it? Pratigya and pratyakshta. So would you like to just elaborate that?
I think Baba's reminding us very powerfully that the promise that I make isn't just a promise in thought or in words, but it's a promise in reality, that I actually make it happen. And so when I'm making it happen, then revelation will happen. So Baba's putting both together. How can revelation happen unless you become Bab Saman, so that others can see Baba through you? And so it's a very powerful way that Baba's saying that balance, when you've got both these things equal, your promise becomes a reality. Then that's revelation. And then there'll be blessings for all. Everybody will be freed from all the turmoil and troubles that they're experiencing now, and will be able to take blessings from Baba for peace and happiness, whatever it is they choose for themselves. So our promise has to be real. It has to be made practical, then revelation. So Baba putting it in that way particularly.
Yeah, lovely. And also I was thinking, gentlemen, effort is interweaved in the sense that, we make one effort in this area or this direction, and it results in something else over here. It's a bit like when we do exercise, like you might wriggle your toe, but then it's affecting your back muscles and your hip muscles. And so I'm actually referring to this aspect of self-respect, which is always this clincher actually in our effort. If only we could just kind of strengthen this core of self-respect, then I think that would tighten a lot of screws. Yeah. So my question really is that in connection with the giving, because I think self-respect and giving has a big connection, because our self-respect is not intact, then we're not able to give. So what are your thoughts on building that bridge or reinforcing that self-respect?
Baba gives us so many different titles in the Sakar Murlis and the Avyakt Murlis. And I think I have to remind myself of some of these every day, because maybe it's not even that I practice one all the time every day, but maybe I need something for the morning, something for the afternoon, something for the evening, just to be able to keep my intellect engaged. And so if in the morning I'm thinking about Master Almighty Authority, then in the afternoon, but by the time I've had interaction with many others, then I start thinking about the Master Bestower. Then at the end of the day, I become the Master Angel and really then give blessings to all and just wind up everything. So maybe that's another way to look at it. Not just one blessing that I remember each morning of self-respect, but through the day, several titles as I need them, when I need them, to remind myself of those. And so I believe completely, as you said, that stage of self-esteem, self-love, self-respect, recognition of the self, who am I truly? I think that this needs constant attention. And that's the way to build up my own stage to a stage in which Sakar Murlis have talked about being immovable, unshakable. And so if my dignity and my self-respect is intact, then yes, I'm able to give. And in the giving, I'm receiving so much from Baba, but also ultimately from the souls to whom I'm giving. They might not be giving me blessings today. They might just simply be taking and not recognizing what's going on. But at some point, they also will start giving me blessings. So it'll be double blessings. But what I need to do is to, at this moment, just make sure that, yes, I have my own dignity and self-respect. And then in any situation, there's no comparison and there's no commercialism. And by that, I mean where commercial, it becomes a business. If they do this for me, I will do this for them. They didn't treat me with respect. Why should I bother to treat them with respect? No, I'm creating my own sanskars. And I want to have that sanskar of maintaining respect and being able to give respect. Whether they give it or not is irrelevant. My giving is what is important. That is the purpose of my Brahmin life. This is why I said that it really shifted something in my awareness when I read that statement from Baba. The meaning of Brahmin life is to give. The purpose of Brahmin life is in this. And so I expect so much from others. I sometimes demand from others, but that's not what Brahmin life is. Let me give, let me give, let me give. And of course, it's not a question of giving money or anything else externally. It's a question of that time and attention and respect, being able to listen with respect, to be able to understand what is not being said. By giving it that attention and that open-hearted feeling, then yes, in that giving, I am also receiving from Baba. And later on, I'll probably also receive from them. It'll happen, but I don't need to wait for it or expect it or demand it at this moment.
Yes, so true, gentlemen. And I always feel, having studied some conflict resolution, that there's only conflict because we want something. I mean, in essence, that is the bottom line. If we didn't want it, then there would be no conflict. But may I just share a quick story about Baba? And this is the story of Dadi Nimalshanta. And so somebody had insulted Baba by saying that instead of he's a jeweler, he's, I don't know, a greengrocer or a tailor, like something like that. And so she felt quite hurt. And so she went to Baba and said, I'm going to file a case against this person who's saying this. And it's not right, and they shouldn't defame you, and etc., etc. And so Baba said, no, dear, because, you know, that's Baba's child. And how can you file a case against Baba's child? He's your brother. He's your soul brother. And actually, Baba said, you go and talk to him instead. And so this newspaper agent, the name of the newspaper was Vishwamitra. And Vishwamitra means like friends of the world. And so Baba said, okay, so you go and tell him, look, you're being our best friend, because as you defame us, we're becoming more famous. So you can see how, again, I'm just pointing, I just remembered it, because even in moments like that, Baba didn't want anything. He didn't want to be right or to be proven right or anything like that. So that's my point. When I don't want anything, I can let go. So maybe in vein of that, then Baba talked a lot about determined thoughts, not just sankalp, not just thoughts, but determined thoughts. And Baba said, it's like you should write it on your forehead, Jayanti. And I know that you have in the past covered that, but maybe it's to remind us again how to create determined thoughts.
I think it was answered in that statement later when Baba's saying that you understand, and everybody who's a Brahmin understands karma philosophy, understands the titles that Baba has given us, understands all of this. But then, is it really my deep desire to achieve this? And, you know, it's like with the Olympians. If somebody has a little bit of a question mark, can I make it? They probably will achieve bronze. They'll never achieve gold. But if somebody has that absolute firm determination, this is what I want to get, this is what I want to achieve, then that commitment they have, that dedication, that promise that they've made to themselves is not something they've told others, but it's something that they've told themselves that motivates them and pushes them even beyond their levels of endurance, and they achieve it. This I know from, I met about 4 Olympic gold medalists, I think, and they've all said the same thing, that it was that inner willpower that they had that made it happen. And so, do I want to attain victory over Maya? Do I want to get rid of all my weaknesses? Or am I going to say, well, it's okay, like Baba said, you know, it's that carelessness and making excuses. Well, they're not doing this, so why should I? Or they're not there, but I'm seeing this weakness in them, so why should I make the effort? That's absolutely fine. You're fixing your role within the drama, and you're also fixing the state that you'll still be a warrior at the end. You won't have achieved victory. If I want to achieve victory, I have to be absolutely fixed in my vision on my goal. You know, like the story of Arjuna, he was told, what are you looking at? Well, I'm seeing the bird. No, don't see the bird. Tell me what you're looking at now. I'm seeing the eye of the bird. Well, that's not good enough. See the pupil in the center of the eye. And if you see the goal that you want to attain, then you're going to hit the target. Otherwise, even a little bit here, a little bit there, short sight, long sight, all these things Baba said, you're not going to achieve your goal. I need to change myself, and I want to. You know, no matter how much the Didis and Dadis tell us that it's good to become sweet, it's good to become tolerant, it's good to become this, that, or the other. Well, that's them. They're speaking from their level of effort. But what is my intent? Do I really want to achieve this? And if that is where I want to go, that's where I'm going to land. And if my vision is a little bit here, a little bit there, it's okay, fine. That's where you'll go. And so that determined promise to myself and to Baba is that I really want to become complete and perfect, and I know I can't delay. I've been dilly-dallying all these years. I'm seeing many of Baba's children on the screen who have been Baba with for a long time. And yes, there are some who've come to Baba recently, but for them also, same thing. Keep your vision focused on where you want to go. And if this is in your heart, your desire is to achieve this, Baba will make it happen. Baba will help you. But if I'm not clear, I'm not fixed, and I think, well, you know, I've been making effort all these years, I'll get some reward for it, whatever it is, and I'm okay with that. Okay, that's what you're fixing for yourself. You know, it's the director offering you options for which role you'd like to play. And you say, well, you know, this little role, this small part is okay for me. Okay, fine. The director isn't going to push you. But if you say, I want to play the hero part, the heroine part, then the director will say, okay, well, you do what you can and I'll help you, but make sure that you remember this is what you want to be. So it's the time for casting. All the roles are up and available, whatever role it is I wish to play. And so it's up to me.
Yeah, gentlemen. So you'll tell Baba, right, on our behalf that...
No, I think it's a personal contract between you and God. No other human being in between. That's the beautiful thing, because another human being in between will interpret what you're saying or interpret your motive. It'll always be a bit of a mess. But you, with direct communication with God, that is the beauty and power of Sangam Yuga.
And just to add, gentlemen, in the week, that point touched me where Baba said, you have all this knowledge. And lately he's been talking about turning the trees into pens and ocean into ink. And then he said, but if you have one doubt, then that's it, finished. It's amazing how this one doubt weighs against this whole knowledge that we've been hearing for so many years. So just how careful we need to be.
Because that one doubt is like a worm, a tiny little worm. And so, here's a beautiful apple. And then you notice that there's a slight hole in one side. And you ignore it and the apple sits there. And by the time you cut it open, you see that everything inside has turned awful because that little worm found its way right to the innards and spoiled the whole apple. And so doubt is like that. It's tiny, but it wriggles inside and it spoils everything. And then I begin to question Baba. I question myself. So.
Yeah, so true. So gentlemen, how can we become fearless enough to see blood at the end?
Detachment and awareness, these two things. I'm able to be detached, absolutely soul conscious, and I'm very aware that this is just a scene in drama, and beyond that, there's something very beautiful that's to come. And so faith means to see that which isn't visible to these eyes. So what my physical eyes are seeing is blood and destruction, but my mind's eye is seeing that this is a process of cleansing. This is the end so that the new beginning can start. So I need to have both of these: total detachment, but love in my heart, of course, but the third eye wide open so that I can see what is beyond 3 people, 5 people, 7 people, whatever it is. One of the first things that Arjuna is told in the Gita is, you're looking at mortal beings, but in fact, don't look at the mortal beings and your relationships with the mortal beings. This is my uncle, this is my maternal uncle, paternal uncle, all of this. See the immortality of the soul. And that first lesson is very clearly the lesson of the soul, the immortal soul. This is who I am, and this is who all these people are also. Now, that doesn't give me license to go and shoot, but it does help me understand when there is shooting going on, that I have to know that the soul is eternal, and this is the end of Kali Yuga, and beyond that is Satyuga. Some people write to me about horrible things that are happening in their life, whether it's in their Lokik family, whether it's at work, a lot of injustice, a lot of crazy things. And I just have to remind them, you have to understand it is the end of Kali Yuga. Baba has told us that stupid things, crazy things, things that don't make any sense are going to be happening. So this is part of that story. And so I have to learn to be detached from that story. Then I can maybe take power from Baba and help them also. But the first thing is that I have to be detached. If I get involved with my emotions and feelings, oh, this is unjust, it shouldn't be like this, how am I going to sort it out? I don't have the capacity. So first step, detach. Then I can look at things in the right way. Then maybe if they're ready to take some help and some awareness of the connection with God, then I can help them with that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, gentlemen. So now we'll move on to chat questions. So gentlemen, this morning in Global Cooperation House, you had mentioned that, or somebody mentioned that we will send sakash to a couple of souls. So what if you don't know those souls? It's fine to send sakash to somebody you know and you visualize them. How can you send sakash to somebody that you don't know?
It's interesting because I got this message yesterday from somebody who's a friend of the BKs. She's not a BK herself. And she wrote specially telling me the story of this woman who's a very beautiful soul, a very powerful soul from the things that this lady had written. And she said, please, please send your prayers to this individual. And I don't know this individual, but I had a moment, should I request this of everybody? And I thought, well, it's a request that's come to me, so I don't want to ignore it. So then I circulated that message so that the announcement could be made. And what I do at that moment is just keep Baba in front of me and send light to souls. I don't know this soul in particular, but I'm sending light to all souls. But it's also with that pure thought that Baba's light is going to reach a specific soul who has requested help. Because that person had requested this friend, send me your prayers and so forth. And so this friend then knew that this is what we do. So she asked us. So we're sending Baba's light to all. But because it's been a specific request, then it reaches that soul.
So sorry, just to understand clearly, I'm sitting with Baba and I'm just visualizing myself looking at the globe and sending light, and Baba's next to me. That kind of.
Okay, the way I do it step by step, I'm aware, I'm here, Baba's in front of me, and Baba's light is reaching all those little tiny stars, souls. And whichever soul is ready to take from Baba will receive.
Okay, very clear. Thank you. Here's another question that Baba said today. Understand how everything that happens in the drama is fixed. All of this should be in your intellects in a practical way. So this person is asking about the practical way. Why did Baba say, and can you give an example of a practical way?
Here's somebody who falls down, and at that moment, maybe it's me who's fallen. In a very practical way, at that moment, can I say, okay, Om Shanti, it's happened. Let me just be quiet and be with Baba, and things will work out. Instead of, why did it happen? It shouldn't have happened. All those waste thoughts that come create upheaval within my physical system. And of course, my mind is doing that. And it's probably going to take longer for somebody to come and help me. Whereas if at that moment, in a very practical way, I say, okay, Om Shanti, and I keep Baba with me, help is going to reach me more quickly than it would otherwise. And whatever needs to happen will happen smoothly, easily, step by step. my own state of confusion and upheaval, then that energy isn't going to allow things to move in the right way. And so if I'm the person who's fallen, it has to be that I remember at that moment, Om Shanti, it's okay, it's going to be fine. But also, if I see somebody else fall, at that moment, not that I say, Om Shanti, I'm not going to do anything about it, but I see them, but I'm aware of Baba's presence. And I say, okay, in this scene of drama, what can I do to help? Maybe I can't lift that person, and maybe it would be the wrong thing to do. But maybe what I need to do is call somebody who can help them, whether it's by telephone or by calling out. If I know somebody, fine, they'll come. But so the important thing is the practical application of drama in that situation is Om Shanti, full stop. No waste thoughts. Why did it happen? It shouldn't have happened. Da, da, da. No, Om Shanti. Then things will come out in the way as is meant according to the plan of drama. And it'll work out much better than the normal confusion and the upheaval that people experience when something is happening. Or even in another situation, here I am with somebody who's angry, and I wasn't anticipating that they were going to be angry. At that moment, in that practical scene, can I just simply remember the soul is playing its part, instead of thinking, but what they're saying isn't right. It's not justified. What they're saying is wrong. No, okay, they're playing their part. Can I just keep Baba with me and send out good vibrations and Baba's light so that they calm down to a certain extent, maybe completely, but maybe not, maybe just to a certain extent. And then maybe it can be a more normal conversation. And if they're still not ready to listen, and I'm talking about a situation I found myself in just a few days ago, a person very angry, and it was quite surprising how the person was really being very unreasonable and totally uninformed in the terms of what they were saying. But there were 3 of us, 4 of us with that individual, and we all just had to be very calm and keep our voices very calm. His voice was quite, loud, but we had to keep our voices very calm and just give good wishes. And after a period of time, he took leave and went away. And then we had the chance to talk to his wife and try and help her also adjust what it is she needed to do. So drama, this soul is playing its own role.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you, gentlemen. I was wondering, gentlemen, do you get less emails and letters because now these questions are being answered?
No.
Still get the same volume of messages.
No, because like Baba said in the Murli, things come in a new form, in a new way. So I hope the day will come when the volume reduces because of all these questions being answered. But I'm sorry to report that that hasn't happened yet.
Because they used to say that, like, Google gets asked, I don't know how many millions of questions. And they said, where did people go before Google was there? Okay, so let's try and do these quickly, since we have...
I am going to leave promptly at 5 today, just to alert you.
Sure. Okay, this has come up last week, so let's take this person's question. And yeah, they've also written and rung in and everything, so they need an answer. So Baba said that those who sacrifice their body in Kashi receive a little. Their sins are fully absolved. Their sins are fully absolved, but they start anew. Is sacrificing the body not suicidal?
Motivation is the factor. And so the motivation of sacrifice at Kashi was that pure love, that I'm doing this for God so that I can have liberation. And of course, they didn't know God. They knew that it was Shiva because Kashi is Shiva, but of course they didn't know the Shiv Baba is a point of light, etc., etc. So there was no gyan, but there was love and that pure thought that I want liberation. So that's different to where I'm depressed, I'm unhappy, things aren't going the way I want, I feel helpless, I feel hopeless. So it's a very different condition. So this is why so often we've mentioned how intention behind a karma determines the quality of karma, not necessarily the action, but the intention behind the action. So yes, it's very different.
Okay, maybe then this last question to end on. So when Baba says, the English translation is be like Baba or become like Baba. So can that be interpreted as having unity with Baba or being one with Baba?
The Hindi word is Bap Saman, equal to the father, like the father. And so, yes, I can adjust in different ways, but that is the precise translation, very accurate translation. And so, yes, it also means that if I'm like the father, my thinking, my motivation, my feelings are like Baba, the benefactor, then I'm in tune. So yes, there's a unity there, a harmony with Baba, because I'm on the same frequency.
Okay, gentlemen, we'll stop here to let you go. Thank you so much. I want to respect your time.
Thank you, but we can have a couple of minutes of silence together.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.
Just to know you, just to live